Do you know what makes Ian Somerhalder attractive? Welcome to another episode of Facial Aesthetics by PinkMirror.com. Ian Somerhalder's face shape is a classic square, and it's one of his most praised features. A square face means a strong, broad jawline, an equally wide forehead and cheekbones, creating a well-proportioned, angular look. This shape tends to scream confidence. Research notes that such defined, angular features convey an air of masculinity and strength. In other words, Ian's jawline could probably cut glass, and science is here for it. His face's balanced width and chiseled edges give off a bold and authoritative vibe, often seen as photogenic and striking on camera. It's the kind of face shape that many leading men share. In fact, if you have a square face, you're in the company of icons like Jacob Elordi, known for that famously strong jaw. The aesthetic appeal lies in the sense of stability and symmetry a square face provides. There are no narrow foreheads or pointy chins throwing things off. This balanced geometry is why Ian's face shape stands out. It gives him a rugged, don't-mess-with-me charm, tempered by a certain timeless, classic handsomeness. Next up, we'll sniff out what makes Ian's nose so notably attractive. Now let's talk about Ian's nose, or more precisely, that nicely pointed nose tip of his. Unlike a bulbous or round nose tip, which can lack definition, Ian's pointed tip adds a refined angular contour to his profile. Why does this matter? Well, studies on facial aesthetics show that a well-defined nasal tip keeps the nose from looking overly large or drawing too much attention. A rounded or ball-like tip can make the whole nose seem wider and throw off the facial balance. In contrast, Ian's sharper tip gives his nose a more slender, proportionate appearance. Scientifically speaking, it's a more aesthetically pleasing shape that complements his other features. This trait is often associated with attractive faces. For instance, male celebs like Ryan Gosling are noted for their more pointed nose tips, which subtly enhance their overall look. Similarly, on the female side, actresses such as Jessica Biel have that desirable nose definition and are often cited for their beauty. The underlying principle is about definition and balance. Ian's nose tip has the kind of crisp shape that keeps his face looking sculpted rather than soft. It's the difference between a face that's merely cute and one that's striking. So kudos to Ian's DNA. Even his nose is on point, pun intended. Stay tuned, because up next we'll weigh in on how less baby fat gives Ian an edge. In this episode, we're cheekily moving on to Ian's lean cheeks and sculpted visage, a result of low facial fat. Ever notice how his face has that hollowed, chiseled look? Turns out that's a big plus. Scientific research finds that the amount of fat in one's face is one of the strongest determinants of attractiveness in men. In fact, one study noted that facial adiposity, a fancy word for fat, was an even better predictor of perceived male attractiveness than things like symmetry or the macho angle of the jaw. Ian's low facial fat gives him sharper cheekbones and jawline, which signal health and fitness. Even tiny changes in weight, as little as a 1.3 BMI difference, can show up in the face and affect how attractive someone looks. And Ian's face clearly isn't carrying any extra baggage. The effect? A defined, model-esque look that folks tend to find very appealing. This trait is common in male models like Sean O'Prey, whose razor-sharp features owe a lot to a lack of chubby cheeks. Even DJ-turned-heartthrob Calvin Harris slimmed down his face and magically jumped several notches on the hotness scale. With his naturally low facial fat, Ian's facial contours are on full display, giving that statuesque appearance. Think Greek statue jawline. It makes his face read as more mature and masculine, and it lets those killer cheekbones do the talking. In short, less fat equals more definition, and more definition equals one insanely photogenic face. Of course, nobody's perfect. Coming up, we'll flip the coin and examine one of Ian's features that isn't scoring a scientific gold star. Alright, time to spice things up with a little constructive criticism. First on the list of Ian's lesser-rated features, his nose width. Now, Ian's nose isn't wide per se, but it falls into an average width category. And according to facial aesthetics research, that's not where you want to be. Studies have shown that men with narrower noses, smaller width, are often seen as more masculine and attractive. Counterintuitive as it sounds, wouldn't a bigger nose be manlier? The science says otherwise. a slightly slimmer nose is perceived as a youthful, virile trait. Ian's nose width being average means it's not especially narrow and thus doesn't add extra points to his attractiveness score. In the beauty world's current trends, the ideal is for the nose to take up less real estate on the face. One research tidbit even suggests the most attractive male noses are less than a quarter of the facial width. To put it in perspective, even Hollywood hunk Brad Pitt has been noted to have an average nose width that analysts rank as less ideal. Meanwhile, male model Sean O'Prey, yes, him again, exemplifies the narrower, refined nose that tends to get top marks. For Ian, this average nose width is a minor quirk of his otherwise stellar face. It might ever so slightly blunt the chiseled look that a slimmer nose would give. But let's be real, unless you're staring at calipers, this flaw is pretty subtle. Consider it a tiny footnote in an otherwise gorgeous mug. Next, we're moving north of the nose to tackle a brow-raising topic. Literally, Ian's eyebrows. Gather round because it's eyebrow time, and Ian's eyebrow shape gets a mixed review from the beauty boffins. Specifically, he sports relatively low arch eyebrows, and for males, that's considered a less attractive feature. How come? Well, unlike women who often rock elegant arches, men are generally deemed more attractive with straighter, flatter brows. A low arch means Ian's brows have only a gentle curve sitting close to his brow bone. The look is relaxed and natural, sure, but it lacks the lifted, awake effect that a higher or more structured brow can give. Studies on facial masculinity note that men's eyebrows tend to be thicker and straighter, sitting lower on the forehead compared to women's. It's a hallmark of a rugged, masculine face. Ian's brows do fulfill the thick part, but the slight arch softens his expression a tad. In the grand scheme, it's a subtle detail, but it nudges his face toward calm rather than striking in the eye area. To see the contrast, look at celebs known for their brow game. Former One Direction star Liam Payne, for example, has straight, horizontal eyebrows that are often cited as enhancing his looks. In comparison, actor Jesse Williams has a low arch brow shape similar to Ian's, which gives a gentle, approachable appearance but doesn't pop as much in the attractiveness department. The aesthetic consensus, at least according to facial analysts, is that Ian's brow shape could use a figurative lift. A higher arch or straighter line would open up his eye area and add intensity to his gaze. Of course, we're splitting hairs here, or rather hairs above the eyes. Ian's still a handsome devil. It's just that his brow geometry isn't winning any beauty pageants. Which celebrity do you want to analyze next? Curious about your own facial aesthetics? Then visit PinkMirror.com.